Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Bruce with False Peak Ventures, and today we're going to talk about Tableau mapping, more specifically how you can incorporate some background images into your next project. The use case we're going to talk about today is a manufacturing shop. They actually fabricated this tablet stand for me, and it's a complex business, a job shop, many customers, lots of work centers, departments, employees that cross over day to day. They may be working in different areas. It's a huge data set coming out of a SQL database, over 2 million records. Today we're going to be de-identifying that data, looking at a subset of about 32,000 records. So join us, let's dig in, and hopefully, even if this doesn't apply specifically to your use case, you'll find something that'll help you on your next project. So thank you for joining us. Let's get going. Well, before we get into the details of the demo today, I'd like to take a look at the finished product. What we have here is a performance management dashboard, an operations dashboard, and there's a lot of detail that we can get from this that you wouldn't normally get in an organization that's typically looking at one productivity number. If we look over this time period with 32,000 different data points, we have one aggregate productivity measurement of 82.8% over this time period. And unfortunately, many companies just stop there. The second step is looking at trending. Over this period of time, July 5th through September 27th, we can overall see that we're trending up, quite a bit of variability. In order to address this, we want to find what are the biggest drivers for the good and the bad. And broken down by department, this graph shows every department that we report on, relatively how many hours are worked, and productivity for that department. And what we're looking for in both of these graphs are the upper right-hand quadrant, where we're working a lot of hours and we're productive. Alternatively, in terms of areas of opportunity, we have work centers where we are working a lot of hours and we're just not hitting our productivity targets. To raise this aggregate productivity number, make more money, and drive improvements, what we're going to want to do is focus on some of these folks right here, these departments, and figure out what we can do to be more productive in those areas. If we use this as a starting point, what we can do is click on and get some additional details. In the well group, for instance, we can see at a glance we've got a couple different work centers, and within that work center, this is work center 18. If we click this, it further filters down and we can see productivity and each individual who is working in that cell. We have some people who are working above standard. Millie's doing a fantastic job. We have Lovey, who's doing a pretty decent job. And on the flip side, we've got a couple people in this area here who are working a lot of hours, but just aren't hitting the productivity target. We are looking at any of the individual departments that meet our productivity target. We give them a green thumbs up and a red thumbs down if they do not hit our target. And you can see that we've got some of the larger icons. The size of these icons represent how many hours are worked in that department. What we are looking for is a big green thumb, not a big red thumb. Anything that's small and red pointing down, not really a big issue. You can see here we've only got 140 hours worked in this work center. That's a Komatsu press. That's not driving our productivity. We want to focus on the big thumbs, and hopefully we've got big green thumbs and not many red down thumbs. In addition, we have several supervisors. We can select an individual supervisor, and it will only show the work centers that are related to that supervisor. Each supervisor can modify this dashboard to only see the stuff that's relevant to their individual work teams. Now that you understand how this interactive dashboard can help drive some improvements in this use case, let's take a look on how we got here, create the background image, do some formatting tips, and then put it all together. Well, obviously the first thing we're going to need to do this visualization is a background image. You can see one here that I downloaded off of Google, off the internet, and the Work center names, PITS machine, snap block machine will not align with the work centers we have today, but for the purposes of this demonstration, you can certainly get the idea of how this whole thing fits together. Next thing we need is we have to determine where each of our work centers are going to be placed on that. And we do that through an X and Y grid. Our data set has two columns, an X location and a Y location. Our X values are along the lower axis, and our Y values are along the left axis. Each individual work center has a unique X and Y location. So we have to determine where those are to the best of our knowledge. We'll put those X and Y values in our grid, and that'll be the foundation for the visualization. That Google sheet we looked at is called Work Center Reference, and we have these fields: Department Supervisor, Work Center name, X location, and Y location. We did join these to our Alteryx cleansed demo data set so we could link the department and work center with the core data we have, and we won't get into that in this video, but you want to be sure to join those appropriately so you get the data set working as you intend. We are going to go up and to the map drop down, background images, manufacturing demo, Alteryx cleanse. This is the name of the data source we are using for this visualization. You want to make sure you select your primary data source if you're working with multiple data sources, because this association is at the data source level. If you end up changing the data source, your map will disappear. You're going to have to go in and reassociate it. To add the image, the first thing we have to do is navigate to the location that we stored our image. Right here in our Tableau repository, we will find the image we downloaded from the internet. And the next step is we have to tell Tableau how we are going to identify the unique locations of each one of our elements. We're going to do that by using our X location and our Y location. And we have to tell Tableau how we are going to number these axes. So we will go from 0 to 50 on the X-axis, and we will go from 0 to 50 on the Y-axis. We have that associated with our data source, and let's start looking at what our visualization looks like when we overlay like magic. Here we are with our sheet, and it has a background image and all of our work centers laid down in the grid that we established on our Google sheet based on our X and Y location coordinates. One thing worth noting at this point: we have our X location and Y location, and we drag those over to rows and columns, and if you see this, you have got to change these from discrete to continuous. Once we do that, like magic, we're back to the data visualization we need. Once we are back, we want to look at our data type. You can see we've got decimal and whole numbers as options. For this demo, we have it set as decimal because we are going to want the granularity of going down to a couple decimal points in a location. Alternatively, if you have this data coming in as whole number integers, you're going to struggle to divide those up into decimals, and that makes it more critical to have larger axes on both the X and Y planes. First thing we're going to do is give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on whether we meet our productivity target. We've got a productivity goal as a parameter that we've established, and a Boolean true-false calculation. Does our calculation meet our productivity target or not? We'll drag this to shapes. You can see I've worked with this thumbs up and thumbs down before. If we want to modify that, we can go in and select from our list of options, and you can see that the false is now half full. Let's revert and go back to the way we had it with the thumbs up and thumbs down. To show the relative impact on our productivity number, we want to make sure to size those according to how many total production hours during that time period. We'll do that by throwing production hours on size. You can adjust that depending on your preference: big icons, small icons. In addition to the size, we want to make sure that we don't clutter up our visualization with a bunch of text and labels, so we're going to pack our tooltip full of some valuable information. As you can see, after we have formatted our tooltip, by hovering over, we can see what the work center name is. A productivity 78 does not meet our productivity target, and our 78 script is red. Our script is green when we meet our productivity target. Last thing we want to cover is how to move some of these elements around on our sheet. You can see that some of these align with the work center, some of them do not, and let's walk through what we can do to change those in a little cheat. Let's look at a couple of these outliers here, and we have powder coat, and we want to put that where this spot welder is going to go. How do we do that? Well, we could start lining these up and saying it's about 31 and it's about 11, change our data source and refresh it, but there's a quick way to do this. You want to right click on here and add an annotation, annotate a point. This is showing us an X location and a Y location. We will say OK, and we can drag this point on the spot welder, and it will tell us that that location has an X coordinate of 30.93 and a Y location of 11.36. Google Sheets, powder coat. If we go back to our data set, refresh, we should see this jump over to our spot welder. When you're done with this, you just delete your annotation and it's like it never existed. And the last thing we have to do before we add this to our visualization is we will take the title away. We will not show the axes. And then we are able to drag and drop that into our visualization. And we have our map. The last and final thing we have to do is use this as a filter. Once we've selected it as a filter, it will apply. And we can do additional dashboard actions if we need to further control the visualization. That wraps it up for today's mapping demo, and I hope you like what you saw. If you did, please leave a comment on anything you can think that would make this a better visualization, something you enjoyed, something you didn't. Also, check us out on Twitter at FPVData. Subscribe to our channel. We will be doing new content every week. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.
You